Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Welcome back. Did you enjoy your break, your lunch?
Yes.
Lovely, lovely, lovely. And I'll be sharing now because Lawrence is busy being on Facebook. That's okay, isn't it?
That's what I'm talking about.
Yes. No, he's just taking care of the online viewers. So please, online they can put their comments and questions on so they can be answered. But what we can look forward to now is our next speaker that will talk about the spirit within. So, Ewan.
Thank you.
So the platform is yours.
Oh,
The time
thank
is
you.
yours.
Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon. And also good afternoon to everybody that is joining us online as well. So, I am here to speak about the spirit within. And of course, I have what's known as the graveyard shift straight after lunch. So, if anyone falls asleep, that's absolutely okay. I'll just throw something. Anyway, the spirit within. We look at that word spiritualism, and we can take parts out of that word spiritualism. We can take the word spirit. We can take the word spiritual. But that leaves that wee ism at the end, ISM. What possible part could that play in spiritualism? And a few years ago, I realised it played a very, very important part. Spiritualism, spiritual ISM. ISM inside me. Spiritual inside me. That spirit within that we all have. What is it? What is that spirit within? And it can be the simple to the complex. Do you know if you're going into a house for the first time, whether you're buying it or renting it, you're through that front door and it either feels right or it feels wrong? What is it? You've not seen any of the rooms yet. It could have the most fabulous decor ever, etc. But you just know. It feels right, that's fine. It feels wrong. And then everything up here can tell us logical. What we should do in a situation. What we shouldn't do. That's worked it all out here. And yet something here says, or contradicts what's going on in the head. And again, I often think it's that spirit within. The spirit within is something that laughs with us. We feel it. It's the emotions. Or the opposite. It kind of warns us. It protects us. But that spirit within is something that evolves very much from the day we're born to the day we pass and thereon. And I look at some of the pivotal moments in my own life just as these examples of where I feel for me that spirit within changed. And I remember going back, like many people, to when I was younger, and things kind of didn't make sense. I believed there was something out there, but I never really got the answers. And I was one of these annoying kids, and still am annoying, I think, to a certain extent as well these days, where I always wanted to find that answer, and I still am. And if I didn't get the answer, I would ask again. And that came into everything, almost faith, even at a young age as well. I remember going to Sunday school. And I remember one Sunday refusing to go to Sunday school. And my parents could not make me for life nor money. And that was that. But looking back on it, I realised something didn't make quite sense. And then in these years, I remember those moments, and when I go back, I realise that it was that spirit within, where I could feel that emotion. Maybe there was something not quite right, and then something would happen, maybe in family, something like that. You know that feeling that we get? We just know something's not quite right. And I was always aware of that there was others there, but I wasn't quite sure who they were. Now, growing up, I was not seeing dead people. I have to say that. But I was aware of them. So we then travel up to about age 17, 18. And something happened in life that threw everything into turmoil. And my father died. And it was at a young age, and we had not long moved house and everything. So that was one of these moments where I think, you question everything once again. But a couple of years later, my mother was asked by a friend if she wanted to go to a spiritualist church. And my mother said, yes. So she went with a friend, and she got a few messages, and she would come back and tell me. I thought, yes, this is getting interesting. This is good. And then one day I decided to go along as well. And I went along, and I got a reading. I sat in that chair like that. Motionless, expressionless, prove it. And she did. And just to give you a couple of examples of what she came out with, she said, I have your father here, and his name is John. Common name, okay. He's pointing to his chest, but it's not his heart. Okay. Well, my father actually died from breast cancer, which was very unusual at that time. And then she said to me other things. I remember saying no. And some of it was quite personal. I said, no, definitely not. Until I went back and checked with my mother, she said yes. And there was also a couple of things, and one of the great things I think about mediumship is that some of the things that are said, we do have to go away and check. It's homework. And then some of the things come in years later that you suddenly think, whoa. And one of the things she said was, she said, you had an aunt that liked to dabble. I said, oh, dabble? Dabble? What's dabble? She said, a little bit of the hocus pocus. Oh, I don't know who that is. I remember saying to my mother, she said, it might be such and such or such and such. She had an aunt that used to do tea leaves and things like that, but we weren't sure. Until a number of years ago, and my aunt passed, and we cleared out the house, and hidden behind a unit was the 1934 or something like that book of fortune telling and everything. And I remember just going, whoa. And that was just one of those examples. And then she said at the end, and I'll never forget this, she said, in a few years you'll be doing this as well. There's not a Scooby a chance in anything in this world. But I went away, and I think this is where it comes back to the involvement of the spirit within. I started thinking about it. Started thinking about the reading. How did she know? How did she know? How did she get that information? And then very slowly, it almost started to bring those answers in of what I felt growing up what was happening. So that's where I took that interest. And from there on, that spirit within, I hope, over that time, has evolved. Because it's certainly answered a number of questions I've had. What happens when we pass? What is out there, etc. So, as the years go on, I said there's these pivotal moments. One pivotal moment that for me changed that spirit within, and in such a good way. And it was a number of years ago, but I was asked to give a reading to a lady who was terminally ill and in palliative care, and she had a couple of weeks left to live. And I was asked along to give her a reading. And honestly, it was such a privilege. And it got me here. And I thought about it for a long time afterwards. And it really, as I say, got me, because I realised then the importance, the importance of it all, how it helps someone else in life and their journey. And that's the great thing. And that spirit within that we have, when we use that spirit within, and everybody will have their examples of that, but your journey of life. I spoke about that this morning briefly, and Frederick spoke about the joy of spirit, and also bringing it into that book of life. But it is a journey. It is a journey. We have one shot. So there's, that saying, there's no dress rehearsal. This is it. And in a way, we've got to make the best of it that we can. And it can be a tricky journey at times. Very tricky. It has its ups and has its downs. Remember my grandmother, you always used to say, this may be a Scottish expression, when it rains, it pours. And that's what she used to come out with. And in a way, I get that. Because there's times we have to draw on the strength of that spirit within. That can be difficult. Because when we do lose somebody, naturally, we have questions. We go through that journey of grief where there is no right nor wrong for that journey. That journey, we may cry, we may be angry. All these emotions come into that journey. But there's something about that spirit within that helps us through that day by day. Do you know that again, that saying, when somehow I found the strength? Where is that from? That is from that spirit. And we need that strength, because that strength carries us through life, but always evolving. Sure, if I asked everybody, remember back to who you were 10 years ago and who you are sitting today, would you say you've changed? It's had its good times, it's had its not so good times, but something has changed. And it's that evolvement and that journey we take in life. And that spirit within as well is affected by everybody else, even if it's for a moment. Back to my sayings today. But there is that saying that people come into our lives for a reason a season, and a lifetime. And that reason can be very momentarily, but somehow it helps, and vice versa. We just needed that little bit of help at that time, and vice versa. There are those that come into our life for a season. So it's a bit of a longer term, but again, it shapes that spirit. They travel with us in life as we do them. And then at some point, the roads may part. But that was part of our journey. And then there are those that come into our lives for a lifetime. And let's face it, we've all met folk like that we think, oh, a lifetime? A lifetime? But mainly, those people that we have for a lifetime are those that stand by us through thick and thin. There are those that, when the going gets tough, we can rely on, we can call, and again, vice versa. These are the people that probably mostly shape our lives, that journey within. And again, that is something that I think is fabulous. Because as the journey goes on, and our journey goes on, there are probably people we're yet to meet. Whether it's that reason or a season. And we don't know, what tomorrow brings. So in a way, we are left in that unknown. What's happening, what's coming. But that spirit within we have is there, evolving, and will help us go through from past experience, because we're always learning. So when something happens, we will often go back to past experience. How did I deal with that last time? And it'll probably be differently this time, because all that has shaped us in many, many ways. I also think that spirit within, that spirit we've got here, is that spirit that can truly connect the spirit above. And when I speak about that, I speak about that in mediumship as well. Because we all know that head gets in the way at times. When we have that communication coming forward, that head will try and change a little bit of it, or kind of make sense of it. But what if we connect that spirit to spirit and try and take that head out of it? What if we take that time where we truly sit in that silence and connect with that spirit within? And that's where I take it into another little road here with the spirit within. Because through life, from our earliest days, we're kind of conditioned in a way. There's these introjected values that we have, and many of these come from our parents. So I will bring an example here, is that I always remember when an uncle had died, and we went off to see my aunt. And I remember my mother saying, "Don't mention your uncle." Why not? Don't mention, you'll just upset her. So as we look at that kind of scenario, it almost became that death was a bit of a taboo subject. In recent times, when people are ill, more and more they will pass in a hospital setting. So in a way, times have changed here. And it's kind of been put a little bit as if it's not talked about in many ways. And I think that's quite sad. Because as I said, it's very much a privilege to be with someone as they pass. To be part of that passing. And as they connect with their spirit. And that spirit within that then we journey forward with, again writes those chapters of the book. We can also connect with that spirit within, because sometimes I call it that inner child. And life is so busy nowadays, really is, that it's difficult to connect with us. So we take that time to listen to the spirit within. Just sit there. Just listen. Just call in that spirit within. And perhaps it'll just be like that little beating of a drum as it grows and grows and gets louder and louder. But when we connect with that spirit within, imagine if we ask that spirit within what it needs. What if we ask that spirit within what it needs from us? And that takes in the whole of the body, the mind, the spirit. And I bring that into also is that when we connect with spirit, how often do we ask them what they need from us? How often do we ask them what we need? Now there's a thing. There's something that, again, a bit of a pivotal moment. So I come back to these pivotal moments that help evolve that spirit within. And also to add, there can often be many crossroads in life as well. And these crossroads where we're not quite sure what to do next. Head saying one thing, in here saying another. For me, over time, the times I've listened to the head, 9 times out of 10 I've got it wrong. When I listen to hear, 9 times out of 10 I've got it completely right. Thank you. Any questions anyone would like to? No? Yes? Oh, everyone's gone very quiet. Everyone's.
Have one down there.
As you were talking, I was thinking about the cultural differences in countries around the world, and we seem to be so cerebral, so in the mind in the Western world, and yet over in Asia and other areas, their spiritualism is much more important. Spiritualism as in their structured religion, not as in their abstract.
Yeah. And do you mean in there like the
It's part
concept of
of their lives.
dying and
It's
grief
always part of
and
their life and how
yeah.
they deal with the dying and how they deal with the sick.
yeah.
things of that kind.
And we're funny enough we were
It's
talking.
almost like we're behind.
Yes, I mean, in a way, you know, and we're moving into it a little bit more. But I remember when I was young, and of course, like many folk, you went to a funeral and it was you were wearing black, no matter what. It was hymns. It was, in the Scottish words, a dour occasion, which means it was really quite depressing. But as time moves on, and I think the thing I like about it is that we're starting to realise that with the sadness, there's a celebration of life. You know, we're celebrating somebody's life, that journey, that joy of their spirit that was spoken about earlier. And it is, other cultures do it so differently. And just to add to that as well, I mean, I remember a number of years ago, and I did this charity trek, and it was over, I was going to say 10 years, it was 10 days, and we went through Jordan and Petra with the Bedouin tribe. And we camped out overnight. They lived every day just in that day. And their connection with the spirit, with nature, it was something else. And I remember thinking again, maybe another pivotal moment here that wasn't that nice. It's just their way of life. I don't know if I've answered your question or not.
I think we agree.
That's fine. Well, I like agreeing, yeah. I like agreeing. Anyone? Uh-huh.
You mentioned in your lovely talk about asking spirit what we might do for them. Have you asked?
Yes.
Did they say anything you can share with us for you?
Yes. And I'll go back with an example here because I love doing my mediumship. But there came a point a few years ago when my mother took ill. And my mother had dementia, and I moved back into the family home to look after her. But I still had this plan, I was going to try and do everything else here. And I remember connecting with that spirit within and said, you need to slow down, you need to slow down. I didn't listen. Thought, no, guys, I'll be okay, guys. And it was, I can't remember what month it was, but I remember parking my car and walking down to the Conan Doyle Centre in Edinburgh because I was about to do 3 readings. I can't remember much about it, but one moment I was walking, one moment I was down. And I broke my ankle. And I remember, and this was for me later sending that thought up, and they said, well, you didn't listen to us. I remember thinking, Strangely enough, the 3 folk that were having the reading never came back, so must have thought if you never saw that coming. But that was my example because they were saying, well, you've not listened. What do you want us to do? How have we got to make you listen? So that was mine. Anybody else? Lawrence, you always come in with a question. I'm just allowing you this.
Okay. Really interesting. Thank you, Ewan. And it was so nice to hear once that you weren't surrounded by spirit when you were a child. That makes, because we all think, oh, if you weren't surrounded by spirit when you're a child, you're not a medium, sort of thing. So it's really nice to hear that. What would be your advice to anybody who is thinking or unsure, or there's just something impinging on their awareness and they're not quite sure what's going on? What practical things could they do?
Run a mile.
To your local church.
Run a mile. No, I often say, if it's something that you feel in here again, that it's something that you should follow. That spirit within calling again, follow it. Take your time. And that awareness, I always go back to the circle and development in the circle. And I love going back to that as well because it's that grounding, it just takes me back and just settles me down. But allowing that awareness to grow within the development circle. So there's that. I've often seen a number of folk who, it's almost that excitement, and it's an excitement working with spirit, but I would always say take your time as well. There's no fast route. I'm 55 and almost 55, and I started when I was 18, 19. And I have tried to take my time, but spirit will direct us.
No. Mine's the opposite. My spirit within the gut feeling, excuse me, screams at me. So mine's very different. I get a lot of premonitions. I know when my children are going to be poorly. I know when somebody's going to walk out from a car. And I did touch base with Lawrence on this yesterday. The feeling that they put on me as a warning is so much worse than the event. And I ask, okay, I'm listening. Can you take it off me? Is there a way that you can recommend that I can get them to reduce it? Because asking isn't working.
Connect from that spirit within to the spirit above and ask them. You know, when we connect to them and to say, do you know, I know you give me this, but I'm not, it's too much. It's too much. And allow them to work with you. It's back to what I said earlier about what we need from spirit and what spirit needs from us. So it's asking them just to reduce that a little and get back to me and let me know. I think I saw another hand, but I'm not sure.
So you said just now that it started when you were 18?
Yes,
Is it?
18, 19. It was a
Yeah.
couple of years after my
So
father
how
died.
come then would it come to some people so early and maybe then to some so late? Is there, got an answer to that? Is there any kind of...
I think in the scheme of things, there's no such thing as coincidence. And whatever took me into that at that point was the time that perhaps Spirit said, we are ready to work with me. And it came about at that time. Perhaps earlier wasn't the time. I mean, there was things going on that I couldn't make sense of, but as I said earlier, I was not growing up waking up and seeing a dead person in the corner or things like that. That wasn't happening. Now on the odd occasion I wake up during the night and there's a person at the corner of the room, but that's...
You know, like Frederick said that you've always got one foot in and one foot out,
Yeah.
if you like.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems that very different, obviously, for different people. Whereas such an early age, you see that, or for others maybe not at all, or for others later. Just wondered, I mean, you know, I don't even know what that question is.
My answer to that is it was whoever in Spirit decided that was the time that was right for me. And I truly believe that. And I don't think I can answer that in any other way, to be honest.
Is there a time where it was left alone, maybe, where you didn't from an early age, or was it always continued consistently throughout your life?
There was something there that sat, these feelings, the odd feelings that something wasn't right, as you were saying as well, and didn't, or feel edgy, or that, almost like that little premonition, and that would happen as well. And as I say, I always felt there was somebody there. There was folk there, but I couldn't see them.
Did that come later?
That was still early. That was through childhood. It was felt, oh, there is somebody there. What's that? But I couldn't see them. Couldn't see them. But for me, that age, I think, was when Spirit decided, okay, we'll give him a try. We'll work with him. See how he does. And it's been a good journey. again, it's had its ups and downs. I think everybody would realise we do have in that spiritual journey. But all in all, and touch wood, if I'm still here in 20, 30 years, I hope, he said it's a cough. Thanks. 5 years, 10 years, that I can still do what I'm doing. And I think I'm about to lose my voice there, or whatever they're doing, but I think Spirit are also saying to me it's time to sit down. Thank you.
Thank you, Ewan. Marvelous, isn't it?